Hello everyone and welcome to Midlands Climate Conversations. My name is Wayne Musingwini, your host today. Joining us today is Dr Edwick Madzimure from WILPF, and she is a development practitioner working on the intersection of climate resilience, environmental restoration, as well as women empowerment. She's got a background in rural development, gender, as well as women and girl empowerment. Welcome, Dr. Madzimure.
Oh, thank you so much.
So, Dr. Madzimure, what has inspired you to be working on these community-based and environmental issues?
Okay, so what inspired me is how I grew up. I grew up in Globe and Phoenix, a small mining community, and I'm sure you've heard about the Globe and Phoenix Primary School that caved in recently as a result of artisanal mining activities. So as a girl child, I used to walk in those gullies to school every day, like watching the artisanal miners doing their thing. Even when I started doing my master's, my project was even inspired by the environmental effects of artisanal mining, and Globe and Phoenix was my case study. So I must say how I grew up and the environment that I grew up in actually inspired the work that I'm doing today.
So we understand that mining is the backbone of Zimbabwe's economy, as well as majority of small communities and rural communities out there. So what kind of challenges do these communities face, and in particular, what kind of challenges do women face because of mining?
Okay, so mining is contributing to a lot of environmental and social challenges for most communities, particularly artisanal mining. And maybe I can give you an example, not just of Zombe communal area, but even here in Kwekwe, we are facing such issues of environmental degradation. And I also realized that the issue of environmental rehabilitation after artisanal mining has been done is not there, and it's not a subject that is really being talked about. And looking at the challenges and how it affects women, I'll focus on rural women. As it is right now, we are having challenges of conflicts that are there between farmers and artisanal miners, especially where they are gold rush. Because where they are gold rushes, even if it's in your farm, the artisanal miners, they'll come and then, they take the gold, and then after that they go away. And then when they go away, what does that mean to the rural woman whose household is dependent on rain-fed agriculture and using those farmlands? So it's a challenge. We recently visited a homestead whose farm was actually degraded by artisanal miners when there was a gold rush and no rehabilitation was done. So not only did she lose her farmland, but it's now also a danger for the household. You can imagine just a few meters out of your yard, and then there are very deep gullies and pits that are surrounding your household. It's not safe for women, and some women are also losing their farmland. As I also spoke about the lack of rehabilitation being done on the environment. So it's really a challenge. So that's for women, but even for girls, because we also have schools and even clinics that are being affected by artisanal mining activities. We've got schools that have been degraded by mining activities. And you can imagine young girls having to walk to school, and then they go through the gullies and all that. And some of them are even dropping out of school to get married to these artisanal miners. And some of these artisanal miners are even of their age. We've got young boys that are dropping out of school, and we have young girls that are dropping out of school to get married to these miners. So like I said, it's not just the issue of the environment, but we also have social challenges that being caused by artisanal mining activities because of how it is being done, and should I say the issue of rehabilitation not being taken into consideration, and also the conflicts that we are seeing between farmers and the artisanal miners, and the conflicts over land use. Some want to do mining, and then as some households want to do rain-fed agriculture, which is now a challenge. So we have conflicts, we have got environmental challenges, and also social challenges.
So we understand it's not just mining that's affecting this area of Zombe, but there's also environmental pressures as well. So how are climate change vulnerabilities contributing to land degradation in this area?
Yeah, thank you so much for that. You realize that as a result of climate change, most rural households that rely on rain-fed agriculture now have to look for alternative, sources of livelihood. And for them, since these communities, they have experience in artisanal mining, and maybe just just a background, you find out that most of the communities, or should I say households that are in Zombe, most of them, they used to work in mines. You say Globe and Phoenix, Empress Mine. So when those workers were retrenched, they had to go to Zombe, for their rural lives. But then they had that experience that they had in mining. So for them, it comes naturally that this should be maybe the alternative livelihood after the failure of rain-fed agriculture. Climate change vulnerabilities are contributing to erratic rainfall. As a result, most farmers, they no longer have confidence that of the yields that they will get from rain-fed agriculture. So naturally, artisanal mining is, the easiest form of livelihood. They don't need capital. You just need your ore, and then you go to the forest, and then you start digging, and then maybe at the end of the day, you've got a point, or you've got a gram, and then you can buy milli meal, and you can sustain your family. So it's actually contributing to land degradation. So what I'm saying is, climate change vulnerabilities are pushing communities to artisanal gold mining. And what I can also say is, if you go to these communities, you not only find men there, but you find small boys, you find small girls, you find women also carrying out artisanal mining. But then there are different activities that they will be doing. You may find women doing what they call alluvial mining or rubble mining. That is, it's much easier. It can be done by women and girls and even young children. So yeah. The point is climate change vulnerabilities are pushing most of the community members to artisanal mining, and these miners, most of them, they have experience of gold mining since they used to work in mines. Given the mines that are around Kwekwe, the examples that I've given you, Empress Mine, Tiger Reef Mine.
With all this happening, how are these shifts contributing to shifts in traditional labor roles within rural communities?
Yeah, it's contributing a lot to shifts in traditional labor roles because just like what I have highlighted earlier on, we now find women, children, young girls, doing artisanal mining, like rubble mining, alluvial mining. And traditionally, you would find these women in the fields. I must also say that some women will not be doing the actual mining activities, but they'll be, carrying out different activities on these mining sites. Some will be selling to the miners, and some, though which is not, it's not something that we should be proud of, but we may also find some women there also selling sex, something which used to be a taboo for most rural communities, but that's a reality that you can find there. And also, we also have rural women these days also conducting cross-border trading. Cross-border trading used to be done mainly by women from the cities, but right now, if you go to the communal to these communities, they are actually women that are now doing cross-border trading. Why? Because of the availability of the income that is coming in through what? Through artisanal mining. So we have women that are actually taking part in the artisanal mining roles, like rubble mining, artisanal mining. Then we have women that are vendors. We have women that are doing cross-border trading. So like you said, how is it contributing to shifts in traditional roles? So we now see, instead of seeing most women in the gardens and in the farms, we are actually seeing them doing work on the mining sites.
Thank you so much for those insights. We really do see how this is affecting women in particular, as we always talk about how climate change effects are really not gender neutral, but we really got the insights on how it does really affect not just older women, but younger women as well, particularly these rural women. With all these problems coming up, we've got mining, we've got gender issues, we've got climate change occurring. How are you as WILPF working on solving these issues?
Okay, so first of all, we like I highlighted earlier on, the environmental challenge of land that is not being rehabilitated after artisanal mining activities that are being done. So what we did is we conducted a training in partnership with Forestry Commission. We trained the community on how to make tree nurseries. The reason why we did that, it was the idea that after they have knowledge on how to make tree nurseries, they can use those, tree seedlings to plant in the areas that have been affected. So, for instance, we have got areas where we actually conducted monitoring visits, and we discovered that this land needs to be rehabilitated. So the community will then go and level up all the gullies and the pits that are there. Then after leveling up, they will then use the trees from the tree nursery trainings that we did with them to plant on those areas. We also discovered that there's a lot of gender-based violence that is happening within the mining sites. So we are also conducting dialogues with men and boys on gender equality and how they can be allies for gender equality. And we also discovered that this violence does not only affect women, but we also have men also being victims of violence, men and boys being victims of violence within the mining site. So we are also conducting dialogues on peace building and how they can actually resolve conflicts without fighting, because right now we've got most conflicts that are happening there that are based on resources and access to these resources. So we are actually also carrying out dialogue. So our intervention is on the environmental side, and we are also doing dialogues with the members of the community, because after having rehabilitated the land, we also need a community where peace prevails. So that is our intervention. That is what we are doing. And during the second quarter, that is what we'll be focusing on, exactly on the land rehabilitation and continuing on the dialogues, because of the rain during this first quarter, we were not in a position to actually start land rehabilitation. So it's on our priority list during the second quarter, as soon as we start the second quarter of the year.
That is some amazing work. We really do see the sustainability of it all coming in. We see how socially we're making change, environmentally, as well as economically. So indeed, it is true, where there's a will, there is a way. And that is some amazing work, Doc.
Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for joining us today as we share these interesting insights on climate resilience efforts in different communities. You can see how we don't need grand or large-scale technological solutions to the problems in our communities, but innovation at a small scale can make a big difference within whatever community you are in. As we always say, no one knows about it
until we talk about it.